Hey, this is another video that I'm dropping. Um, Today we're gonna talk about taking upon Christ's yoke and his burden, and we're gonna read from Matthew 11, verse 28 through 30. Jesus says, "Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you, and learn of me, for I am meek and lowly in heart, and ye shall find rest unto your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." And if you read in 1 Peter chapter 5 verse 7, he says, "Cast upon all thy burdens upon me." Jesus exchanged our life, our struggles, our pain for his way of life. He changes for that. Now, if you understand the concept of what he says, people take this and interpret it in many different ways. But the true meaning of this is Christ says, "Take upon my yoke. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." What yoke is he talking about? What burden? Why would I change my yoke and my burden for your yoke and your burden? What's the difference between your yoke and your burden? Christ went through a lot of mistreatment, a lot of persecution, a lot of attempts to kill him. He went through a lot of silent periods when he limited his words. He went through a betrayal, denial, temptations, and he went through attacks. He went through whippings. He hung on a cross, and he dealt everything as he says in verse 29. He handled with a meek and lowly heart. Christ says, "Take upon my yoke, for it's easy, and my burden for it's light." He wants us to conduct ourselves as him. That means if somebody comes against us and disrespects us, we are to act like Christ. You hear the famous line says, "What would Jesus do?" Because God set the standard that we shall follow, that our standard is Christ. That's the limit, it's Christ. And we as followers of Christ should act like Jesus and should not always be ready to retaliate because someone is against our beliefs or against our faith, or not try to shove the word at somebody's mouth or judge someone or just talk about individuals who do not want to accept Jesus. Jesus didn't get mad at the Pharisees enough. He didn't judge them. He didn't condemn them. He didn't do none of those things. He showed the true character of God that everybody was missing in the Old Testament. He showed who God really was. He showed the God of love. He showed the God who created the heavens and who created the earth in 6 days. He showed the God who formed man from dust. He showed that God. And then he says, "Listen, take upon my burden. Be like me." You know, it doesn't. Basically, I'm being honest with you. I'm really against Christian rap because of the fact that I heard a lot of Christian rap songs, and I'm gonna be honest with you, I like some of them, but I'm not a fan to listen to Christian rap because I feel as though that is on the borderline of being official rap because you can slip up and you know it. I hear about a certain artist who I won't name, and hearing him dissing other individuals. I'm not a big fan of that because that's not how Christ wants us to do it. People can live their life as they want to. The Bible speaks of free choice. When people talks about Jesus, when they talk about God, when they talk about Christian, they talk about the church, let them do that. God said you are to respond as my son. And when we do not respond as his son, we give them unbelievers the ammunition to shoot back at us. We're feeding into the devil's plan of pulling us off of our walk with God, off our path, to fall into foolery and argument. You don't have to defend God. God can defend himself. God says, "My standard is my son. Take upon his yoke." What is his yoke? Being mistreated, being prosecuted, being abandoned, being talked about by his own siblings. You heard about the story of his brothers and them saying, "Come up to Jerusalem." Prove to us that you are who you say you are. Nothing good comes from Nazareth. And he dealt with all of that without sinning. We are to imitate Christ in all forms and fashion. That's his yoke. That's his burden. To love thy enemies. Pray for those who mistreat you. Why? Because God loved you even while you were yet still sinners. He loved us. And we sit here and we try to defend every possible fate of Christianity possible. For what reason? Satan loves a Christian who bickers and who argues and debates the word of God. It's good to have some civil discussions. It's good to have people, express their opinions. It's good. But when it comes to you shoving the word at somebody's mouth, or you're getting angry because somebody don't believe what you believe, we shouldn't get mad. Because when Jesus was in the house of the Pharisee and the woman came down and cried over his feet with her tears and washed his feet with her hair, Simon, whom he healed, said, if only he knew who she was, he wouldn't let her touch his feet. And I found Christ's response very intriguing, because he explains to Simon how the girl reacted to him and versus how Simon acted towards him. And then he tells the woman, thy sins are forgiven. They got mad at him. Who was he that he's able to forgive sins? Jesus could have got mad. He could have proved that I am God. That I am God. I can forgive sins. But he did not. Even when Peter comes to him and says, Sire, you don't have to go do this. There's another way. He says, get behind me, Satan. For your works, for your mind out of God. None of these things are of God. Even when he looked at Jews, he said, Jews, go ahead, do what you had to do, for the time is near. Christ says, take upon my yoke, take upon my burden. We are to imitate Christ in all ways and all fashions. Take upon his yoke. He said, give me your burdens, give me your yoke, and I will take it. But I want to give you rest. Now, if he offers us rest, why are we still trying to defend the things that we believe? Why are we still trying to argue with individuals because they're not following Christ right? We are the light of the world, and we need to live as true Christians. Some people wear Jesus chains, they speak about Christ in these songs, and they say like, yes, you can speak about it, but you need to live it. Because when you respond the way that they are responding, what have you proven? What was the waste for? Yes, you can go against the establishment. Yes, you can go out there and reach and touch individuals and bring them closer to Christ. Yes, because Jesus went against the establishment. They consider him to be a radical because he went against the establishment. Martin Luther King went against the establishment. Ghandi went against the establishment. Malcom X went against the establishment. It's alright, but we must conduct ourselves as Christ. That is the standard. Yeah, it's tough. I agree with you. It's a tough thing to imitate Christ, because when he was chained and stood in front of the high priest, they slapped him, spit on him, they mocked him, they beat him. Even while on the cross, while carrying the cross, they did all the things, and he still demonstrated who God was. And we as Christians need to understand that. The movie Passion of Christ shows how humble he was. And we need to take upon that yoke and that burden in that movie and apply it to our walk with God. Get a copy of that Beyond the Scriptures on xlibris.com. Follow me on Twitter. Follow me on Instagram. Follow me on Facebook.